When I was about 6 years old and was playing with the kid next door one afternoon, the lights went out all of a sudden. We were by ourselves since all of our family members were at a hospital with their mom who was suffering from leukemia then. So when the blackout happened, my friend went out of the house to the porch and was doing something I don't remember. I was by the door looking outside when something made me look back into the house. There in the living room was a shadow figure walking around. Tall, dark, no recognizable features whatsoever. It was as if someone was wearing a black hole bodysuit, but not as definite as a real person would be in a room. Wasn't too blurry either, but I noticed it moved around the room as if it were looking for something. I actually wasn't scared at this point since I've never seen anything like it and I was a curious child. The next thing I knew, it went up to the second floor, so I followed it and continued to watch the shadow figure walk around the bedroom. Again, kinda looking for something. Then it started moving towards the wall on my right. I remember thinking this time, oh shit, is it gonna disappear? Is it gonna disappear? And sure enough, it vanished through the wall. I forgot about all this until I was around 17 and was watching one of those real ghost stories on TV in Japan. The ones they show every summer season before the Obon holidays. One guy talked about his own experience of seeing shadow figures in a hospital where he was confined in for a few months. He mentioned that he sometimes saw them beside people who were about to die. Chills ran up and down my spine when I heard this. I remember my friend's mom died about a week after I saw that shadow thing, but at least I have my own understanding of what that dark figure I saw might have been. Either death or the thing that picks you up when you die. I'm a female, first of all. I'm 21 now, but when I was 4 years old, my sister had just turned 16. She had just gotten her license and was so excited. It was probably only September and she got her license in July. My sister is from my dad's first marriage, and she lived with her mom and stepdad while I lived with our dad and mom. We lived about 30 minutes apart. My dad worked late hours and my mom frequently traveled for work, so I had to spend a lot of time at babysitters, which was costly, until my sister got her license. My dad finally gave her permission to pick me up after she got out of school and take me to her mom's until he was off work. She was so excited to finally be able to use her license. I know I said I was only 4, but I remember this event so vividly. There are parts of it, understandably, that I've forgotten over the years. It took years for my sister to even ask me if I remember it, but when I told her all the parts I remember, about 80%, she filled me in with the rest for me. It was one of the first times my sisters would get to pick me up from my babysitter, which means it would be one of the first times she'd been allowed to drive with me alone. Almost as soon as we pulled onto the main road, a white pickup truck swerves behind us. Weird, but whatever. After a few turns, my sister noticed that the truck still followed her. Even when she would just switch lanes, he was right there switching behind her. My sister, being a bit paranoid person, tested it a little and switched lanes several times. She said she heard his tires squealing by his quick cuts to get behind her again. She told me not to worry, and I remember being an oblivious little kid. She looked scared, but I had no concerns. The man started to get really angry. I don't remember anything about what he looked like. I do remember that he had this look of pure hate on his face. Strange that you can sometimes remember expressions, but not the faces they were on. He wasn't angry, he was full of hate. He was honking the horn repeatedly, just laying on it. He was very close to our car. He was swerving back and forth and trying to get our attention. He would pull up beside us occasionally, flip us off, and honk. The first big event came about when we pulled up at a 4-way stoplight. It's a bigger one, so there was a lot of room in the intersection. We were the first ones at the stoplight in our lane. Nobody was beside us. The man used his lane to pass us and pull his car in front of us and almost in the intersection. He was blocking us. I so vividly remember the white pickup truck. He got out of it and started storming towards our car. He was screaming so hard I remember thinking his face almost looked purple. Neither one of us remembers what he was saying, but he pulled up his shirt to reveal that he had a gun. He pointed to it and at us, threatening us and closing the gap between us. My sister put her hand over my body and told me to close my eyes and floored it through the intersection. She said she was worried we were either going to hit him or get hit in the intersection, and it was a better chance than sitting there and waiting for the psycho with a gun. He hopped back in his car and followed us. My house was closer to where we were than my sister's, so for some reason, she decided to go to my empty house. Obviously, he followed us and blocked us into the driveway. He got out and walked towards my sister's parked car, pulling his gun out. Once again, she had to think fast and swerve her way across our lawn back out onto the road. This is before cell phones, and she had just started driving when still young. She had no idea what to do. He followed us back onto the neighborhood road, pulling up next to our car and hitting his truck against us, trying to make us skid or wreck. There is a smallish area of grass between my neighborhood road and a major busy road, and it was obvious he was trying to push our car hard enough to send us into the traffic beside us. He had his gun up on his dashboard still, all within reach. I remember him doing that little gesture where you drag your finger along your throat like you're slitting it, like he was going to kill us. His face was still purple. There was a gas station nearby and my sister decided on the last thing she could think of. I remember her talking to me so seriously and sternly. She told me she needed to be a big girl, and the second we pulled by the door of the gas station to undo my seatbelt and jump out, run inside so fast that I shouldn't even worry about closing my door. I was to run inside and go directly to the person behind the counter and tell them to call 911 because a bad man was following us. We pulled in and she threw the car in park and I jumped out and did as I was told. She was only a few seconds behind, but she had to actually stop the car, park it, turn it off. Whatever. She closed her door and mine for me and just ran inside with me. The man came into the parking lot behind us, and when we were inside, he went through my sister's car. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. They never found him, and we never knew what provoked him or what his plan was. The only thing he took from the car was my sister's ID and the cash she had on her. This is something that happened to me back in 10th grade. I couldn't sleep and I was feeling restless, so I decided to take a walk along the greenway near my house. Most people would have reservations about walking through the woods alone in the dead of night, but it was a safe neighborhood and I knew the greenway like the back of my hand. No more than 5 minutes of walking through the woods and I hear a girl singing. I recognize the tune right away. It's Camptown Races, you know. Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-dah, doo-dah. I look around for the girl, but it's pitch black. Not wanting to suddenly come across her and frighten her, I shout out, "You have a nice voice." No reply, she just keeps singing. Weird. I continue walking, but the singing isn't getting any further away. Is she following me, or are we just coincidentally walking in the same direction? I make a sharp turn and start walking down another path. The singing follows. Another sharp turn. Again it follows. Okay, now I'm 100% sure this bitch is following me. I start trying to pin the location of the voice with no luck. I think she was purposely changing her volume to prevent me from knowing where and I was getting closer or further. Now I'm really starting to get freaked out. I bolt and start sprinting back home. I was running track at the time, so I was pretty certain I could ditch her. I get home, kick off my shoes, and turn on my TV. I'm about 10 minutes into the episode of Aqua Teen when I hear a voice that's not coming from the TV. It's a girl's voice singing fucking Camptown Races. For a brief moment, I just sit there in pure terror. This can't be happening. I run outside barefoot and frantically look around. I realize that the voice is coming from above me. She's on the fucking garage roof. I kept a ladder on the side of the garage so I could climb up and smoke weed. My parents thought I was tanning. The ladder was the only way up or down unless you wanted to jump and chance a sprained ankle. This is it. I've got her. I race up the ladder just in time to see a figure in red hoodie disappear off the side of my roof, leading to the backyard. She had jumped. I watched her race across my backyard, completely unfazed by the fall, and book it over our 6-foot fence like it was no big deal. I briefly considered chasing after her, but I couldn't in my bare feet. Frankly, I don't know if I wanted to. I don't believe in ghosts and ghouls, but I'm still freaked out by the whole thing to this day. I was at a maid's house spending the night when I was in middle school. As expected, we stayed up for all hours, which didn't matter most of the time except the bathroom was right near his parents' room. About the only time we'd get in trouble was when someone would wake them up when nature called. To avoid this, we'd go out the basement door and just pee in the woods. The door stayed unlocked most of the time because we managed to lock ourselves out more than once. This was also compounded by the fact that we'd all wander out to find something to do in the woods on a regular basis. This night, his older brother was home and kept barging in the basement door and raining chaos from above, so we decided to lock the door just to deter him. Not that it would have kept him out, but at least he'd have to use a key, and that took barging in fun out of it. About midnight, we heard the handle jiggling and didn't think much of it, figuring it was his brother. After about 5 minutes of off and on handle fondling, my vocabulary has decided not to function at a high level today. We finally hit the door and yelled for him to stop. Quiet. No response, no more clattering of the handle. Great, we can move on, right? Well, about 10 minutes later, it started again, and the process repeated. This went on for about 2 hours until finally, after telling him to stop, we just said screw it and ignored it. He continued for about 30 minutes. After our last attempt for him to stop, then just gave up. Well, fast forward to about 9 a.m., we were just staring and one of my mates had to go to the bathroom. If you ever had a sleepover like that, there are just body strewn everywhere there is space, and once the first person starts walking around, it kinda stirs the nest. We all started stretching and make our way to relieve ourselves of all the soda we binged on the night before. As I go walk outside, I grab the door handle to close it behind me and I noticed it felt rough. After looking at it, I saw the space around the keyhole was all but destroyed. There were giant scratch marks on every surface and the metal guides were bent and skewed. I asked my friend that lived there what had happened. He said it was the first he'd noticed it. Not really wanting to get blamed for something his brother did, we went upstairs and told his parents about the night before. After his dad went down to see what we were talking about, he went completely white and ran upstairs to call the cops. Evidently, someone had been trying to force the lock open while we were all inside. That actually happened to me more than once on a different occasion. What completely freaks me out about this time was that this person knew we were in there and that we knew someone was trying to get in. Even so, he repeatedly tried to force his way inside. God knows what sort of person that was. When I was younger, maybe around 12, I was alone at home with my sister, who was 10 at the time. Our mom went down the road to a family's friend's house. It was really late, past 10, and she was still not back. We were watching TV when suddenly someone hit the letterbox twice really hard, and without looking, we opened the door straight away. We assumed it was our mom. When we opened it, there was no one at the door, but in the middle of the road, there was a lady just standing there staring at us. It was really dark, so we didn't see the face or anything properly, and then we just shut the door and sort of shit ourselves. Our mom came back around 20 or so minutes later, but it was definitely one of the creepiest moments ever. When I was about 7, maybe younger, I went to my mom's best friend's house with my mom in another city. It was just me, my mom, and her friend and nobody else in the house. Except when I was there, I saw a family which consisted of a mother, a teenage boy, and 2 younger girls that looked really burnt just walking around the house together without taking their eyes off me. At one point, they even told me to go with them. I didn't think anything of it at the point because I assumed they were house guests, but many years when I told my mom, she mentioned it to her best friend. Her best friend told her they had to move out of the house because they had many haunting experiences, such as finding all her new baby toys out in the middle of the night after she tidied it. Things moved around in blankets and pillows on the floor as if people slept there. She asked her husband, thinking maybe he did it, but he was just as scared as her, so they moved out. So I have these cousins who always somehow lived in haunted houses. It probably makes more sense to say they're haunted. My uncle and auntie used to live in a small house first, and they had just one child at that point. Whenever they were downstairs, they'd hear someone walking upstairs, and whenever they were upstairs, they'd hear someone walking and doing things downstairs. They eventually moved, and then at their third house, strange things happened too. Blankets would get pulled off when they were sleeping. You'd see family members walk into this bedroom that no one stayed in, but when you walk in, there's no one there. It's just empty, and this happened regularly. Then eventually, my auntie started going slightly crazy and said it was after she saw this scary ghostly woman standing in the hallway in their house. Eventually they moved out. There was 3 girls and 1 boy, and my auntie and uncle, and the family they sold it to also had 3 boys and 1 girl, all around the same age. The other creepy story is also about them, but in their second house, where one day their grandma was taking a nap in one of their bedrooms upstairs. My cousin, probably around 8 at the time, went to her and she called her to take a nap with her, but she just stared at her, then ignored her and walked off to another room. Her grandma went into the room but couldn't find her, so then went downstairs and asked her why she did that. My cousin and her mom replied saying she hasn't left the room for ages.
Big up to all my peoples. I done dug into my bag of tricks, came up with some different skits. Not your average mafia, I be on some different shit. You know I'm pimping shit that make you use your mind. So if you can fill in the blanks, do it when it's time. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Feel like I'm in hell, but I wish I wasn't. Yeah, you got it, now knock it. While I rock it, I stick plugs in the socket and money in my... Yo, I get psychotic when you try to diss my staff. No props for your block, so you could just kiss my...